Welcome to the Pesky Report, a podcast for Red Sox fans.
Hey everybody, this is the Pesky Report, episode 191. We have a special guest today, Lenny DiNardo. Lenny, how we doing?
I'm doing great, fellas. How's it going?
We're doing well. We're brought to you by Belly Up Sports Media. We got Brad and Ed here with us. How we doing, guys?
I'm doing fantastic. We got the beautiful Lenny DiNardo.
My wife doesn't give me that many compliments, man. Come on, yeah.
All right, we got this dude. We got this fucking guy. We got this thing.
This guy.
Are you just gonna say to your wife after this, like, these podcast guys think I'm really hot? Why don't you ever say that to me, honey?
I'm thinking about it. I'm like, why don't you treat me like those fellas? Come on.
Lenny, is your wife a baseball fan, like by nature?
I don't think she cares either way, to be honest. Honestly, I will say that she's the athlete of the family. She can literally run circles around me. She does half marathons and she did a lot of triathlons. She's probably done over 100 half marathons. And she signs me up for 5Ks every now and then because if it's any farther than that, I'm driving, to be honest. But yeah, I'll do them. And my oldest daughter is 10. She's getting into running as well. So Julie, my wife, will, by the way, put this in your calendar. You're running a 5K with us. Abby's running with you. And I'll do it. I have fun with her. It's kind of a bonding thing between me and my daughter. But when I was, even in good, decent shape when I was a little bit younger, we would run these things. I'd see her for the first 20 seconds. I'd be like, all right, I'll see you at the end in about a half hour, save a beer for me, at that point. So, but yeah, she's the athlete. She's got 4 Guinness Book of World Records, put it that way, for running half marathons or 10Ks, pushing multiple kids in strollers. She's a world record holder. So she's pretty incredible.
That's wild. How did you meet her?
Okay.
How did I meet her? We met actually at a bar in Naples called Blue Martini. 12 years ago, I guess. Yeah. So I say it's a bar, but they serve food. So I'll say restaurant, maybe. I don't know.
Bar and grill.
Yeah. It's a bar grill. Exactly. Yeah.
Did you introduce yourself as World Series champion Lenny DiNardo?
No, it was in the off season. It was actually November. So it was in the off season, and I met her. I didn't tell her what I did at the time, and it was toward the end of my career, anyways. So, I was texting her or calling her in the middle, like noon, right? And finally, a couple of days in, she's like, "Why aren't you at work? Like what do you do?" Because she was a nurse, and she's like, "Leave me alone. I'm working. Go to where do you do? Shit, you get your job. What do you do?" So I told her I was a baseball player and in the off season. And at that point, she's like, "Oh, this isn't going to work. You're a baseball player. You're one of those guys. This isn't going to work." But I was persistent, I guess. And we'll be married 11 years in January. 4 kids and about 18 moves around the country. So yeah.
You're a better person than me because I would legitimately always start out with, in any walk, any setting in life, would just be World Series winner. That would be my absolute go-to.
You would think, but honestly, if I were to go up to her and say that, she would have laughed me right out of the joint. That's just her personality. She'd be like, so she wouldn't have cared. She wouldn't have cared at all.
I'd be nervous to do it with a pretty girl too. I would whip out too.
She would. If you guys hear a random bell throughout this little thing, it's this guy.
Oh,
this is a new addition to the family, but he's got a little bell around his. This is Pete.
Hi, Pete.
Hi, Pete.
He's running around. This is kind of his sanctuary. Well, we've only had him for less than a week, so he's kind of running around this room.
It's okay if you hear any barking. It's Penny on Ed's end.
Yeah, we actually have a second dog here this week too. We've got Penny and we've got her friend Zoe, the pug, who also likes to randomly scream when I'm doing things. So,
Right.
if you're just listening to this, we just saw what might be the cutest kitten I've ever seen.
He's pretty adorable. He's the funniest thing ever. I think he thinks he's a dog because he's always hanging. I've got 2 Goldens out there, a 13-year-old and a 2-year-old, and he can't get enough of them. Just can't, he wants to lay around with them, play with them all day.
Yeah, that's Patty.
So, there you go. There's the pup. Yeah.
Like clockwork.
So, Lenny, I want to dive in right now. World Series wrapped up. I wanted to know on your end here, the Astros winning again, are they becoming a dynasty like right in front of our eyes, or do they need to win a few more rings to really be considered a dynasty? Tons of playoff success, but not as many World Series championships. Where do you have the Astros kind of lining up in terms of, is it too soon for a dynasty?
I mean, if they aren't, they're extremely close. They're doing a lot of things right. And say what you will about what they've done in the past, there is a lot of talent on that roster. And I'm extremely happy for Dusty Baker. I wanted the Phillies to win this World Series. I did. I was rooting for them. To be honest, I love Kyle Schwarber. And I love what the Phillies did, kind of the underdog story. When Bryce Harper came up in the league, I thought he just didn't play the game the right way, but I've seen him mature throughout the years, and he's hustling now. He's making good plays. He's dealing with the media in a way more mature way. And plus my in-laws are from Philadelphia, so I want to be able to show up and eat dinner with them. I don't want to eat outside in the front porch, but yeah, I was rooting for the Phillies. But I tell you what, those Astros, they did a lot of things right. As far as the pitching, you can't argue with how they throw the ball. Some timely defense and timely hitting, timely offense. That young shortstop from, I'm going to say it, Rhode Island. Not originally, but he lived in Rhode Island for a long time. He's a really good ball player. Jordan, I tell you what, he's clutch. He's clutch with the long ball. He's a fun player to watch. And again, I'm very, very happy for Dusty Baker to go out there and finally, after all these years, to go out there and get a ring. And he just looks like he's cooler than the other side of the pillow, too. He seems like a manager you would love to play for. There are managers out there I look at and like, man, that guy would be, I wouldn't like to play for that guy. But Dusty, he seems like, man, I wish I played for him at one point in my career. He's just that type of guy, it seems like.
25 years, you never played for him, huh?
No, yeah.
What was the manager for you that made it the most, I don't want to say that just the most comfort with in terms of just trustability, built up a rapport? Which manager that you played for did you feel that with?
Well, Tito was that guy, and a lot of what Alex Cora does is very similar to Tito. Prior to games, he would always kind of walk around the clubhouse and talk to the team and kind of get the eye and the heart test via the conversation. How you feeling today? One of those things. He'd go up to everybody. Hey, we're going to use you today. We're going to try to use you. If I threw the day before multiple innings, he'd be like, hey, how you feeling? If you're a little sore, we're going to push you to the backside of the list, so to speak, in the bullpen. And he had that open door policy that literally his door was always open unless there was a serious meeting going on, because he's always playing cribbage with somebody in there. You just kind of walk in and see it. So, he was a great manager. He's always funny, kept it light. You can look around the league and see some of these managers just they take themselves a little too seriously, and through a 162 game season, that's difficult. That's difficult to get through if you're a player, when you just have that wall up in between the players and the coaches.
Not that I ask you to name a name, but did you play for a manager that was the antithesis of Tito, where, man, he made it a grind? Not that I'm looking for names, but did you have an experience that wasn't as pleasant?
No, I mean, as far as managers, I mean, I've had managers that did have walls up between the players and the staff. At the big league level, there's this separation between the players and the staff, and the players kind of have that there on purpose. For example, when you go from Oakland or Kansas City or Boston to another town, when you take a bus to the airport, there's a player bus and there's a coaching / media bus that goes behind you, right? And I had a manager on another organization purposely put another coach on the player bus to kind of, hey, what are those guys talking about over there type thing, like, and the veterans on the squad at the time were like, what is this? This is BS. No, go back to the other bus. This is our bus right now. And it's just, you'll lose a team that way. You got to have trust that the players need their time to be by themselves and talk amongst themselves and get it up by themselves, and not have a coach presence there, kind of just listening, a pipeline, so to speak, towards the other coaches or the front office or anything like that. So the Red Sox organization, when I was there, we always had that kind of separation and the veteran presence that was kind of needed to kind of sway the rookies in a certain direction, to teach us how to go about our business and whatnot. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, some organizations they have that invisible wall, or they have the lack of the invisible wall where you probably need it in certain situations throughout the season.
Gotcha. Do you think the Phillies were kind of let's say got hot at the right time, with changing managers, right at the end there? Do you think that they were, I don't want to say one hit wonder, but do you think where the Astros look like a sustainable team to be there year in and year out? What about the Phillies? Do you think that they have the roster depth to continue that, or were we looking at a team that just got really hot at the right time?
Well, I think most teams that win the World Series are the team that gets hottest at the right, or at least the teams that get to the World Series get hot at the right time. You look at, teams like the Dodgers. That's an unbelievable team. The Mets this past year, the Padres. These are teams that people thought were going to win the World Series throughout the season. They were kind of like, it's a no-brainer. You feel like the depths in these organizations, player-wise, are how can they not get to the World Series and win it? But it's typically not necessarily the best team or the team with the most depth, but the team that gets there the hottest. I felt like the 2004 Red Sox were kind of like that. We had a good squad. We were a really good team, but we got hot in the last minute, but at the right time. I mean, literally the last minute possible. So, yeah, the Phillies are a great club. Houston, depth-wise, they're a really good ball club. Talent-wise, I feel like they're better than the Phillies. But the Phillies made it a series. I mean, they really did. It was neck and neck for most of it. There was a huge home run game, and then there was a no-hitter. There was one-run ball games throughout the World Series. Just every game, you didn't know what was going to happen. And you're talking about the Houston Astros, a lot of depth, and the Phillies. They just they have a good squad, a lot of talent. But again, they were just they got hot at the right time.
Which even before the World Series, what do you think the biggest upset in this postseason was?
It's tough. I mean, those teams I mentioned, the Dodgers are. How do they not make it with that squad? I mean, and also, I don't know, with the Padres and getting Soto, I feel like they were so close to making it, and having him on the squad certainly helped to get them where as far as they got. But those two teams, I really felt like they were, just set up to get there and win it. But again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's why you play 162 games, and it's not a one game. I hate the one game playoff. I want it to be multiple games, because it shows you that any team can beat another team. Northwestern can go out and beat the Red Sox in a spring training game. So that's why I feel like you got to have more than one game for the playoffs to get in, I should say.
No, it makes sense. For me, we're looking at the postseason. One thing that jumped out to me, and we talked about this, before recording with you, was there's a continued legitimacy to me of the closer role. Ryan Presley put on an absolute clinic of how valuable it is to have a legitimate lockdown ninth inning guy. We talked a little bit. How do you feel about the closer kind of importance for baseball? Kind of looks like it shifted away. To me, this postseason really highlighted again that need of that lockdown guy. How do you feel about is it time for baseball to relook at the importance of that lockdown ace of the bullpen kind of role?
I think it's extremely important to have a guy at the end of bullpen, an anchor, that you can look to, and most of the time he's going to get it done. You want to have confidence in the guy to get those last 3, maybe 4 outs at the end of the ball game. And when a club kind of flips a coin and says, all right, we're going to go to this guy tonight, we might go to this guy tomorrow, or this guy this night. Listen, these are capable arms that they're looking at. These are big league arms on every team, but there's a confidence level, not only for the team, but the actual closer himself, to know that, okay, I'm the guy. And, in the last out of the 8th inning, through the last 3 outs of the 9th inning, that's my baseball. And I feel like your closer, a guy that at the end of the game has to have that mentality. To have a guy kind of saying, or looking at themselves in the mirror saying, is it me tonight or is it him tonight? You don't want that personality at the back end of the bullpen. You want someone that absolutely knows what they're doing, when they're going to get the baseball, and have defined roles. I feel like it goes a long way mentally for the player and the team itself. I mean, to know, okay, if we go ahead this inning, it's the 8th inning, we've got the guy at the end of the bullpen that's going to take care of this. And the fact that certain organizations are going in the direction of, flipping a coin, or maybe saying, okay, this guy threw last night or 2 nights ago, we're going to go to this guy. It's a detriment. I don't think it's a good idea for the game of baseball.
If you look at the Red Sox this past season, they really went through that situation. They took Whitlock, made him a starter. Then they were like, oh, we're going to put him back in the pen. They did the same thing with Houck. It's like, he's going to be the closer. No, he's not going to be the closer. So I agree. We talked about this before. It's like everybody needs to know their roles. And if you don't know your roles, shut your mouth, like the Rock would say.
Yeah. So in 2004, certain guys would come down to the bullpen. They'd wait till the 4th, 5th inning to come down there because they knew that they weren't going to get in the game before the 6th, 7th inning. That can't really happen now because, my rookie year, I'd be down there by the first pitch because my role was basically clean up. If the starter got knocked around, I had to go fill innings. If he walked the first 3 batters and hit a double, I'm warming up. I'm stretching my arm out, right? But Alan Embry, he's not going to come into 5th, 6th inning. He'll be there 7th, 8th. Keith Falk, obviously the 9th inning. Mike Timlin, he came down to the same time every day. Very routine oriented because these guys knew exactly when they're going to get in the ball game, and it's not going to be early. We all had defined roles, and their routine kind of was from that. They knew exactly when they were going to get in.
So I got 2 questions for you relating to the bullpen. And the first is of the options that the Red Sox have right now. So this is free agency excluded. Who would you want to see as closer going into next season if you had to pick from this current pool?
I think Houck has the stuff to do it. I think Whitlock has the stuff to do it. And believe it or not, I feel like Pivetta has the stuff to do it. I feel
I was saying that last year.
Yeah.
I was saying that 2 years ago.
He's a guy that, you're going to lose a starter, but you're going to get a guy that kind of thrives off that energy. And when he's at his best in starting, if you watch him walk off the field on days where he's lights out, he's pounding his chest, he's running off the field, he's high stepping, he's doing all kinds of just crazy closer-like stuff. So if he were to go out in the 9th inning and dial in 96, 97, because he's not out there throwing 7 or 8 innings, maybe he can reach back and get a mile an hour or 2 more in his fastball because it's only going to be 1 inning. If he can kind of cultivate that energy throughout the game and go out there and just be a madman, I feel like that's the mentality that you need toward the end of the game. And his stuff translates. He's got good enough stuff to go out there and do it. You only need 1 or 2 pitches as a closer. If you have a lights out curveball, which when he's on, he does. It's up in the zone and then it's down on home plate. Houck's got that sweeping slider. He's got that little split that goes the opposite direction. He's got the fastball that plays up in the zone as well. Whitlock's got, obviously 98 in the tank for his fastball, and he's got the 2 pitches off of that as well. You've got options. You've got a few guys in there. But again, these are guys where if you were to put all 3 of those guys, if you put them in the closer role, you're losing a starter. So you have to kind of take that into account and figure out what you're doing in that role as well. So there are guys in the organization that I feel can get it done.
My other question, and this is going to be a lot harder. Game 7 of the World Series, you're up 2-1. You have 4 guys in the bullpen: Keith Falk, Jonathan Papelbon, Koji Uehara, Craig Kimbrell. Who are you going to?
Oh man, that is difficult. That's extremely difficult. It's almost impossible to answer because these guys are just one of them were so good at their job.
It's a trick question. They all have middle names.
I'm gonna have to say Keith Falk only because if he beat me up if I didn't say Keith Falk. Falky's the guy. He's the guy. And I played with Pat. Pat's lights out. I didn't play with the other guys. Unfortunately, I didn't play that long. But I love the way Falk went about his business on the field, and he got it done without just the fastball. He was just that little Bugs Bunny changeup he threw, spotting up his fastball, being able to go up and down, in and out with it. He was fun to watch in his prime.
Can I ask you, Lenny? Because I agree with you. I can see Whitlock as a closer. I can see Whitlock as a starter with his repertoire. Which one do you think is more physically demanding on a pitcher? Is it, logging 165, 185 innings every 5th day, or, coming in for an inning 3-4 times a week, making, a bunch of appearances throughout the year? Which one do you think puts more stress on the body?
They're both extremely stressful, but in different ways. To be honest, that's my honest answer because 200 innings is difficult, right? You've got a certain routine that you have to stick to, and it's not like you're pitching every 5 days. The stuff that you do in between your bullpen sessions, your long toss sessions, the stuff you do with the massage guy, it sounds fun, right? Massage, but it's painful. I remember crying with a guy, Russ, basically with his elbow in my elbow, pushing down with all his might, asking me to twist my arm to break up all this scar tissue in between outings. So yeah, it's painful. The stuff you do to get onto the field and stay on the field every 5 days is very difficult. So with that said, going out there on limited rests is very difficult. So some guys excel in one role and they don't excel in the other. So with Whitlock, I feel like what you saw last year was a factor of him dealing with his hip and going out there. I remember at one point in the season where he was supposedly healthy. He was he pitched the ball, and I feel like there was something to the left side of the infield, and he had to go run that direction. I was like, oh, he's not right. I saw him kind of limping that direction. I was like, that's a bad run. Something is not right with him. And at the time, I didn't know it was hip. I thought it was almost his hamstring. But you could just tell right away when he was running that something was barking. But there's no definitive answer. They're both difficult. They're both not easy. And some guys can get it done in the bullpen on 1-2 days rest, 3 days rest better than others. And some guys are built for starting. It just kind of depends on what type of pitcher you are and how you deal with the grind.
So I want to go ahead right now and put a little recap on it. Lenny, if you could tell me 2022 Red Sox, what's some of the stuff that went really right? Right. I know the season as a whole didn't go the way that was hoped, but what are some things that went right in your eyes?
June.
Yep.
Perfect answer.
It was good. It was a good month.
June. What were they? 20-6 in June. They put it together. They were pitching. They were hitting. They were playing solid defense. Everything they did in June seemed like to click. It was just they were so streaky. Throughout the season, the injury bug, certain guys just couldn't kind of get hot and stay hot because they were kind of on the field and off the field. And if you want to get hot and stay hot, you got to stay healthy first and foremost. So the fact that a lot of the key players were injured. If you look at what Kike Hernandez did the year before when he was completely healthy, he was he was lights out in the one spot in the order. He lit the fuse, and then the bomb went off, right? Everybody after him just kind of took the baton and ran with it. We didn't see that this year. He was injured. He was dealing with it sounds gnarly, but with that blood thing that they had to drain. I mean, baseball is hard enough, but when you have stuff like that happening inside your body, it just sounds awful. So hopefully we'll get him back 100% healthy this year. The injury to Story hurt. You know, he's a guy that they really could have, you know, you could see good things, but it just wasn't as consistent as you'd like, again, because of the injuries, because of not being on the field on a consistent basis. And as far as the hitting, he just didn't have the power output that you'd hope for. A lot of these guys that you were hoping to get a lot more home runs, ton of doubles. Doubles are great, but when you win ball games, you got to have runners on, and you got to be able to have the long ball in certain situations. And it just, the output wasn't there like we thought it would. The talent's there. The past years, the players that we had put up those numbers, but just wasn't there this season. So it was inconsistent all around as far as the offense. Certain points of the season with pitching, rotating starters. When this guy's going to start this week. This guy's going to be in the bullpen this next week. And Toronto, when certain guys couldn't be there for certain games, kind of made them have to rotate the starting rotation. And you got a bunch of rookies also going out there starting games.
Yeah.
Where obviously you'd like a veteran presence, a consistent veteran presence. The starters
Like
that they had in the game season. Say again?
Like a Chris Sale?
Like a Chris Sale, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You'd hope to have him back. And again, just call it dumb luck, you know? That finger thing with the line drive. I mean, my heart sank right when that happened. You could just see it shaped like the letter Z walking off the field, you know, like you knew that was broke. And the bike accident, I don't know if you would have come back from the finger anyways after that, to be honest. That takes a long time to come back from. So even if you made a start or two at the end of the season coming back from that, it would have made a difference.
Was there a moment for you when you were like, all right, this is not the year for them? For me, it was the Chris Sale with the finger. I was like, all right, they're snake bit. Like, this is not happening. But was there a moment where you're like, I don't think we're going to have fun in October?
Yeah, it was probably that. You know, I was really hopeful at the end. Like I said, June was a highlight. I was really hopeful that July would kind of not necessarily be 20-6, but, you know, maybe 16, 17 win month. They went in the complete opposite direction in July, and it just was downhill from there. So, I mean, just the consistency wasn't there throughout the season. And I mean, nothing really sticks out other than Chris Sale's finger getting bent up. For me, that was kind of just a symbolic, that's it right there. When that happened, I think everybody in Red Sox Nation kind of felt the same way. Like, well, there it is.
Yeah, I have to agree. Chris Sale was probably the moment where I was just like, well, sure, there's always next year. But I mean, like you had JD, his power was completely down. Xander's power was down. Nobody was hitting. I mean, I think Devers was the only one that hit over 20 home runs. Right?
And for me, I was hoping Bobby Dahlbeck would have kind of his season. You know, the end of the year last year, 21, he had I think he ended up with over 20 home runs in 21.
25.
And just the end of the season, he was just on fire. He was hitting home runs left and right. That's the power output that you were kind of hoping for him this season, and he just wasn't as consistent as you'd like. And when you talk about consistency, you got to look at Franchi Cordero as well. There were certain points of the season where, wow, he found it. Now he's a big league ball player, and then you would kind of go back to AAA again, and like when he was good, when Franchi was good, his plate recognition, his strike zone recognition was great, right? He wasn't swinging outside the zone. He was getting good pitches to hit. Pitchers were pitching to him differently because of that. And then he would kind of take a couple steps back and swing outside the zone again. And it was hard to watch because you could see the talent there. He's one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete on the field. He just hoped that he finds that consistent presence in the batter's box, not going outside the zone. That's the biggest thing with him.
Lenny, I'm not, by any means trying to name names or anything like that here, but as a fan of the Red Sox, there was a hitting coach change this year, and the power really dropped off. Fans put two and two together, right, and say like, well, different message. Do you think a voice can lose that much in one shot? To me, as much as I want to point to it, injuries seem like it's really hard to get into a routine, but it's also so many guys that fell off. So it's probably a little bit of both, maybe, new voices, new routines, maybe not enough trust,
Sure.
but injuries I'm sure are big too. So what do you think is just hard to put a finger on?
I don't think the message really changed though. I feel like with the vacancy of the old hitting coach hires and the new guy coming in, I have a hard time believing that he said, okay, I'm the hitting coach now. This is the new mantra we're talking about. Forget the old thing. These are big league hitters. And Victor, who's with Rodriguez, who's with Cleveland now, he basically said, listen, these are big league hitters. I go out there and I throw batting practice to these guys, and I don't say much. Okay, every now and then I'll say something if they ask my advice. But most of the time, he's out there throwing BP, trying to throw strikes, and letting them kind of figure out their swings. And if they ask him, hey, what do you see on that swing? What did I do on that swing? Then he'll kind of chime in. But I don't think there's a big difference message-wise. It's always get a good pitch to hit, put the best swing on a good pitch that you possibly can, drive the baseball, right? They're still out there hitting baseballs in the cage. It's not a workload thing. And if it is a message, if it is a completely different message this year, then obviously it didn't work, right? But I have a hard time believing that the new guy just came in and said, listen, we're going in a different direction. Why would he do that? It just doesn't make sense.
So is this confirmed that, Lenny, that you're ready to be a major league hitting coach right now? I know you're a former MLB pitcher, but you know what it entails. Like, you're ready to go in, throw a little BP. You'd be great at that. And
yeah, just throw some BP and shut up and let them figure it out. I'd be great. There's a lot. Yeah, I don't want to say that's all they do, because there's a ton of stuff they have to do as far as analytics and kind of helping them out, figuring out little things. But to be honest, less is more. And that's not just hitting, that's pitching too. You as a pitching coach, you want to be out there and know all these guys' deliveries like the back of your hand. But you also don't want to be the guy talking after every pitch and saying, well, try this and try that. Let them kind of figure some stuff out. And if they go to you for advice, or if they're on the computer looking at their mechanics, that's the time to kind of say, okay, you might be flying open a little bit early, or you stay closed a little bit longer there in this instance. But a lot of times less is more at the big league level. These guys know their swings, and they know when to ask for advice and when to come to you. So
yeah, switching to pitching there, actually, a lot of people, you just hear about the lapse in power and that they needed more hitting, but the pitching was a problem all year. I think they had the second worst ERA in the American League. Was there anything that you identified as really being an issue for the pitching rotation, for the bullpen that you saw, or was it just a talent thing?
No, I feel like when they were at their worst, they were walking too many batters. I feel like you got to go out there and pound the strike zone. You got to make good pitches in certain counts, and getting ahead has a lot to do with that. When you get ahead, you're able to get hitters out in so many different ways. You can expand the strike zone. When you're behind in the count, hitters are in the driver's seat, and you really can't get them to go outside the zone because they're looking one pitch, one location, and they know that anything out of the hand that's not really close, if it doesn't look like it's going to be in the strike zone, they can afford to just spit on it because, okay, I'm in a favorable hitter's count. When you get strike one and you get strike two, hitters have to start choking up. They have that choking up mentality where they have to start protecting anything around the strike zone. They have to cut down their swing and kind of just put the ball in play. So it all starts with getting ahead. It all starts with not losing batters and walking them, putting them on free bags. That's the start. And you have to go out there. And again, we talked about the roles, right? Going out there, getting a good solid 6 innings, possibly 7 from your starter, handing it off to as few guys as possible, in my opinion, is the best way to go about it. When you go out and you've got 6 guys throwing in games, that's never good, right? Because if you have 6 guys, you're only as strong as your weakest link. You know, if one guy has a bad game, which we all have them every now and then, there's a good chance that 1 or 2 of those guys out of 6 or 7 guys are going to go out there and not have a good day. So when you go out there and you have 3 guys pitching, you know, any of the 3 guys, right? Your closer, your starter, 1 bridge guy, possibly 2, maybe. I feel like that's a good formula for going out there and winning ball games.
Lenny, can I ask you, Brian Bayo, what's the limit for this guy? Where do you think his ceiling is? And for next season, what kind of step do you want to see him take, right, for next year?
I mean, the sky is the ceiling for this guy. He's got great stuff. And when he first showed up in the Red Sox uniform, I felt like there was so much hype, so much anticipation, and everybody was just geared up to see this guy pitch. I feel like it might have gotten to him a little bit. You know, it was Bayo fever, and he's human, right? So he might have felt a little bit of that. I don't know how he wouldn't have. When I showed up in the Red Sox uniform, people had no idea who I was, and it made it a little easier to go on the mound. Okay, who's this guy? Or I guess he's pitching. All right, hand the ball. It's a little bit easier to go out there and do that. But with Bayo, it was just something that you didn't see prior to, you know, maybe the last time was the Buckholz or one of those guys, right? That's the last time we saw that kind of anticipation for a rookie guy coming up through the organization. With that said, his first few outings, he was kind of outside the strike zone a little bit. He was overthrowing a bit. When you've got his stuff, you don't have to go out there and overthrow. You can go out there 96, 97, maybe pop 99 every now and then. It allows you to kind of take a little off, add a little on in certain situations, and trusting his stuff is huge. And he started to do that throughout the season. I felt like he started to kind of gain a little bit more confidence in his secondary pitches, especially. And that helped him pound the strike zone. And when he pounds the strike zone with that kind of stuff, he's going to have a lot of success.
I wanted to ask you about a pitcher. I know where I think he would be well suited, but Josh Winkowski. You know, I think we saw a little bit of some ups, some downs for a young pitcher. I'm really intrigued with him coming out of the pen. Right. You know, do you see a guy with his makeup? I mean, he looks to me like a reliever, you know, like he really does. Where do you think with his arsenal, is he more suited as a starting pitcher or coming out of the pen?
Well, don't they all kind of look like relievers now? Now, I mean, these days, everybody, starter, reliever, everybody's throwing 96, 98 miles an hour. And I don't want to sound like the old fart, but 20 years ago, you had starters going 88 miles an hour every now and then, making it wrinkle a little bit, changing speeds, you know, kind of the Rich Hill type pitchers. A lot of the starters were like that. Now every starter is 95 to 98. It's like back then, okay, you got some relievers that just threw gas. Mike Timlin, back in the day, threw hard for 1-2 innings. That was it. He's like a starting pitcher now, right? Starting pitchers now have Mike Timlin stuff, and they're going, you know, 5, 6, 7 innings. I mean, with that said, yeah, I can see him throwing out of the bullpen. I think he's got, quote unquote, the stuff to go out there and do it and be successful. You just have to figure out who your 5 guys are at the rotation. You got to figure out who those guys are. I think that's going to be key, getting a consistent 5 guys to go out there, not only stuff-wise, but health-wise. If you can keep them on the field every 5 days, that's going to go a long ways. But, yeah, I liked Winkowski's stuff. I felt like it would translate to a starter, to a reliever. And when you do go from a starter to a reliever, a lot of these guys, they do get a mile an hour or 2 faster. You know, you can go out there and say, I'm throwing 1 or 2 innings today. Let's hump up on this ball a little bit. Let me dial in just a little bit more and see what I got. So who knows what, you know, he might be throwing even harder than he did as a starter.
Yeah, when he was in the Arizona Fall League a couple of years ago, they were using him as a reliever, and I think it was the last game of the year he really pulled it back and hit 99 on the fastball. And ever since I saw that, I was kind of like, oh, he'd be a really good setup guy, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I see with Pivetta. You know, you see Pivetta throwing 95, 96 every now and then. I feel like he could probably get it up to 98 if he went out there and just threw one inning every few days. I feel like he has that mentality where he can kind of will 98, 99 just from that. Because, I love when he was throwing the ball well, because he just looked cuckoo on the mound. And I love that mentality. That's what you want. You want just a little bit he's a little bit off his rocker, and that's a good thing.
I feel like that's something I said last offseason about it as the closer. Am I correct, Brady?
Yes, sir. You are.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
I remember saying that as well after what he did against Washington in that last
Ooh.
game of the regular season, where I just remember that curveball. I think it might have been Soto. He just dropped the hammer on that guy, and it was like, oh, what's he doing in the rotation?
That curveball's filthy, and that's the mentality. You get ahead with strikes, and you get them out with balls. Every time they swing through that pitch, it's not in the strike zone. The catcher catches it down by the hitter's ankles, and that's exactly where he should throw that ball. When he's in trouble, his curveball starts in the middle, ends in the middle. It's always in the strike zone. It's got to start in the strike zone. It's got to drop out. So it's that little extra bite out front that makes him successful with that secondary pitch.
All right, Lenny, can we transition to your GM hat for a moment here?
Sure.
And segue, because I know your decision making prowess is there. Garrett Whitlock, if it's up to you, Lenny, where do you want to see him next year? Where do you think? I know we can do both. I'm sure he'd be great at both. But if you had the choice, where would you like to see him?
A completely healthy Garrett Whitlock. I honestly, I feel like he'd make a top-notch starter, and I feel like we kind of, I don't know. Everybody thinks that he's a reliever. You see what he did when he started, but he wasn't healthy. A lot of people did that. A lot of people. I was thinking the same thing. Maybe I was wrong, But listen, when you're dealing with a hip injury and as a pitcher, it's almost impossible to go out there and compete. And he was out there still throwing 95, 97 miles an hour with a hip that was just crushing him every day. I want to give him a fair shake in the starter's role with a completely healthy body and see how it goes, and then make that decision. We know what he can do in the relief role. He's outstanding. But before I make a decision saying he's strictly a reliever, I want to see him in a starting role, completely 100% healthy before I go all in.
From spring training on, he's a starter.
Okay. I love when people agree with me.
All right, Lenny, I'm 100% in the bullpen, but now I respect you immensely. I will forego my take from this point forward.
No, that's okay. We love differences of opinion. That's what it's all about. That's what
what it is.
About. Yeah.
I live in New York, and Whitlock's rap when he was with the Yankees was the fear that they were fearing making him a starting pitcher because of his makeup and injury history. So of course, then when I see him get hurt while he's a starting pitcher, I'm like, wow. Every Yankee fan I know is like, yeah, that's kind of
told you so. Yeah.
Right. So, I just worry about that. That's why, I alluded earlier to, workload, starter versus reliever, it's mixed bag, but you're in the starting camp. So
right now I am. Only because, I want a bigger sample size. I want a bigger sample size with him healthy.
Tanner Houck.
And a hip's kind of that's a fluke injury, right? You don't see that all the time, although you saw it a couple times this year with Nathan Eovaldi and Garrett Whitlock, both with hips. Very strange. That's the type of thing that makes an organization kind of look at things differently and say, okay, we're going to implement certain stretches this offseason, certain different exercises, so we can kind of not deal with that this next year. So I'd be willing to bet that the athletic training staff put together some sort of stretching or some sort of different exercise routine for everybody in the club to kind of deal with those hips, because they don't want to deal with that again. Hips are strange, right? So
is it possible that his hips are hurt because he signed a long-term extension and his wallet is much heavier than it used to be?
You got to switch it to the other side every now and then, man. That's a rookie mistake.
Exactly. Yeah. So possibly. Now, how about Tanner Houck?
Where do I see him?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see him in the bullpen, to be honest. I think he's a bullpen guy because
Lenny, you and me both, Lenny.
Yeah.
Tanner Houck reminds me of like Jared Weaver.
Okay.
I just see. I think they both could thrive in both, but his repertoire, he's nasty.
He is nasty. He is nasty. I'd like to see him in that Timlin role. I'd like to see him in the 7th, 8th inning, and then hand it off to a closer. To be honest, going out there with that fastball, that rising heater, and that sweeping breaking ball. I feel like just use both of those. Right, that little sinker. I mean, he'd be great for 1-2 innings, late in the game. That's where I like him.
Did you see enough out of Tristan Cassis to say, yep, you're ready to go on opening day, or does he have to make the team out of spring training?
I'm always with the mentality you always have to make the team out of spring training. I feel like you got to go into it. No, if you have a 20-year career or a rookie, go in there and say, okay, I need to go out and make this ball club. Stay hungry. But in Cassis's, in his case, he's going to have Hosmer there, kind of vying for innings, right? I mean, Hosmer is a veteran presence, and they know each other. So I feel like he's kind of going to be under his wing a little bit. Cassis, he's got great plate discipline. He's got a lot of 3-2 counts under his belt this past season. But as far as going out there, I don't know if he's going to have a 30 home run season or a 25 home run season this next year. We're going to have to see. I don't know. I don't know if he's, if he got enough swings at the big league level this past year to kind of feel comfortable, to kind of feel confident to go out there and say, okay, first base is mine this year. We'll see. I think he needs to go into spring training and go out there with that mentality, like, I need to make the club, and that's going to make the biggest difference.
Here comes the toughest question I think you're going to get for the night from me, okay?
All right.
Nathan Eovaldi, do you give him the qualifying offer?
That is tough. That is tough. Because, I mean, again, he was dealing with injuries. He's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career. What has he done after these injuries, though? Once he's kind of you got to look at the individual. Nathan Eovaldi is kind of a workhorse in the weight room. He's very meticulous as far as his routine, and he's dealt with injuries, but he's always kind of bounced back from them. Couple Tommy Johns, he's bounced back. He's had really, really good years. So not only are you getting a good pitcher, a good starting pitcher, throwing, when healthy, 98, 99 mile an hour, you're also getting a great clubhouse guy, a leader in the clubhouse, a guy where people want to kind of follow him in his routine in the weight room and in the training room and all of that. So I think I would. I feel like I would give him a qualifying offer.
All right, so I'm gonna change from fastball in the 90s, upper 90s, to a guy who throws his fastballs in the 80s. Dick Mountain, do you see him coming back?
What was the talk? I just saw him a couple weeks ago. Listen, great guy.
He was talking about possibly taking half the season off.
Yeah.
And then making himself available at the deadline.
I'd like to see him back in a Red Sox uniform, to be honest. I feel like he gets it done a different way. He's the type of guy where you see 95 plus one day, you see 88 to 90 a different way, different angles, another competitor. It switches things up a little bit, from the left side. He's a competitor. He knows how to get hitters out. And I'd like to see him pitch at least 50, to be honest, I think he's 6 months younger than me or something. So it's always great to see a guy that can still get it done other than fantasy camp at my age, So.
Yeah, his style reminds me so much of my dad pitching wiffle ball when I was a kid, where it's just the angles and all the movement. He's a lot of fun to watch.
It's funny you say that because I just saw him at Craig Breslow's wiffle ball event up in Vermont. Probably, what was it, a month ago or so? And he's getting guys out in this wiffle ball tournament just like he gets guys out at the big league level. Switching arm angles. He was making it rise. He was making it sink, throwing curveballs with the wiffle ball. This is how he got big league hitters out. He was doing it in a wiffle ball tournament against, just random people. It was so fun. I told him that too. It was this is how you pitch in a regular game.
We actually have one of our followers on YouTube who has a question for you. Saul Gigman wants to know, Mitch Haniger, yes or no?
What does that mean?
Should the Red Sox go for him? I'm assuming that's...
I don't know. That's why I'm not the GM. That's why I'm not the GM, right? I mean, listen, when you put together a team, you're putting together stats, you're putting together personalities. You're not only looking at players, but you're looking at the individual. You want to be able to, I've said this before, you're putting together a soup, right? So you want to be able to get guys that are going to contribute on the field, but are also going to help the team contribute as well. That's why losing a guy like Vasquez and Plawecki last season was again, that'll answer your question before. How do you know it's over? Right? When you start losing the guys that add to the personality of the ball club. And I felt like that's something that told us that the writing's on the wall, you know, when these guys are lost. So again, I'm not opposed to signing them, but you know, who knows? We'll see.
I have another question for you, not player related. It's actually like ballpark related. So I'm one of those people who are trying to like visit all the ballparks, this, that, and the other thing. Just went up to Toronto, beautiful ballpark up there.
Other than that damn turf.
Yeah.
I just found out that their mound is on like a plate that rises and goes below. I forgot what it said. It was in my passport book that I have. But which was your favorite park to play in that is not Boston?
That is not Boston. You know what? Strictly for stats and competing, I loved pitching in Oakland. I mean, just because it had nothing to do with the way the ballpark looked. It's a foul ball at Fenway. It's an out in Oakland. Yep. There's so much foul ground. It felt like that's 30 yards foul at Fenway Park, and they're hanging over the wall catching it. That's an out. So, and I'm not saying I love the Coliseum, but it was a pretty good place to pitch in, you know. As far as beautiful ballparks,
you would have
Baltimore was a beautiful ballpark. So all the brick, that's a great place to play. I hated pitching on turf fields because it's a easy ground ball on grass, and it's a bouncy super ball over in the left field on turf in Tampa or in Toronto or one of those parks. But I mean, you said other than Fenway, pitching in Old Yankee Stadium was great. Not because of
not the fans.
It's the stadium, but it was just intense. It was intense all the time. Yeah. You know, just crazy. You always like pitching when it counts, and it always felt like it counted there. You know. But nothing else really sticks out. I love pitching in Oakland. I appreciate the fans there as well. I feel like they deserve better, to be honest.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about that. With it sounds like there's a good chance they're going to be moving. Just as having played there for a few seasons and having really thrived there for a few seasons, what's the fan base there like?
It's great. I saw the same faces every day. You know, we were in first name basis down in the bullpen. We'd go down there and talk to the same people every day. And if they got 15,000, it looked like 5 because the thing sits dang near 80 probably, right? You know, the whole stadium. So they love their A's, and it's the same faces every day. So you got to appreciate that. And they kind of stuck with us even when they weren't very good. And you know, as much as I'd like to see them be able to go and see their A's, I don't see that happening, you know, in the near future. So.
And Len, we got the World Baseball Classic coming up this winter, which I am super excited. I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it's great. I just kind of wish for me that it was more in like November because I was afraid of the injury, kind of situation right before the season starts. Is that something that interests you, like the World Baseball? Like if that happened when you were playing, and you were offered, would you have? Oh, it did.
I played twice. Yeah.
Wait, I didn't even. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
I played for Team Italy.
Yeah.
Back in 2006 and 2009.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So back then in 2006, they called Team Italy, and they said, "You're Italian, right?" And I'm actually I'm more Irish than Italian, believe it or not. My last name's Italian. I am Italian, but I'm most of my ancestry is Irish. But they said, hey, your last name's DiNardo. Can you figure out like who came over and when? So I had to do a little research, and I found out when my great grandfather came over. I've got the ship's manifests, the dates, who he came over with, and we found all that stuff. I sent it over, and they said, all right, you're on the club. So we were in Orlando in that bracket. I want to say it was I'm getting the two years that I played kind of mixed up. I think that was Team Australia, maybe the Dominican Republic in that same bracket. We beat Australia one game. I think that's the only game we won. Dominican crushed us, I want to say. But it was fun. Mike Piazza was on the team. Frank Catalanato, Grilly. It was
Denorfia
good.
on that team, or was that later on that he was?
Who's that?
Chris Denorfia.
Denorfia, yeah. Denorfia was there. There was a bunch of kids from Italy too. My favorite part of it was these guys showing up, these Italian players, anywhere from probably 18 or 19 to early 20s, and they would come to the clubhouse and get dressed and see Mike Piazza getting dressed in uniform, and they were just like, the looks on their faces at the time was like, this is incredible. But it was a lot of fun. I still talk to some of these guys on Facebook many years later, but it was great. In 2009, we were in Toronto. It was the USA's bracket, Venezuela, obviously Canada. But we, it was a good time. It was good. But we didn't have a prayer. We ended up like winning one game, I think, in each year in the first round, but it was fun.
So are you a fan now as a viewer? Like, are you going to be tuned in when it starts?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I just hope it doesn't hamper the clubs, like you said, injury wise. Anything can happen on a baseball field, so I'm hoping everybody kind of stays healthy, and that'll keep it fun. Yeah,
I always thought at the conclusion of the World Series that would be, selfishly as a fan of American baseball, anytime
you do it, there's going to be some pushback because it's a long 162 plus game schedule. So once the season's over, you're going to have to play another X amount of games right afterwards without any rest, and then your off season shorter. So you can look at it that way, or playing it closer to spring training. That's just tacks on extra games as well. So again, you just got to be mindful, be careful, and see what happens. Stay lucky, I guess. That's the only way you can think about it.
I'm sorry, I'm just stuck on the people being like, hey, that sounds kind of Italian. Like, did they just go through a list of players with Italian-sounding names and hope for the best?
Yeah, and I think they actually asked Barry Zito at the time, and he's like, I'm not Italian. I'm not sure what he was, but he's like, yeah, I'm not Italian. I'm not sure.
No. I mean, that happens, though, because I remember I'm Jewish, and I grew up, we were like David Eckstein. Not Jewish at all. Totally sick of people asking him this, like, at every game. And I remember getting the chance to, like, get an autograph from him, and I was like, oh, man, it's really, really cool. He's like, you could tell that he's been asked this before by a lot of Jewish kids, and he's like, I hate to break your heart, but... Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they had a list. And Zito was the only guy that I think, I'm thinking back, I think he's the only guy that I heard that they reached out to him, and he's like, I'm not sure if he's Croatian or what he was, but he's like, yeah, I'm not Italian. Yeah, but who knows?
Just a couple real quick, wrap it up here, and thank you so much for your time. I'm sure Xander would be your one as shortstop. Xander Bogaerts, couldn't dream of anyone better. If Xander is not here, of the next free agents, which one do you think would be a really good fit for this ball club, provided Xander Bogaerts is not here? And I don't want that to be true.
Run down the list of the free agents. Is Correa a free agent this year?
Yep, he opted out.
Yeah, I like Correa. I don't think Story at this point in his career. I think his arm's more second base right now. You might want to keep him there, but that's an option. I always liked Christian Arroyo at second base too. I feel like he's another ball player that the more innings he plays, the better he gets. He was hampered by just dumb luck and injuries. Was it 2 seasons
Please
ago?
don't
with
ever
the hand
put him
wrist?
in the outfield.
Yeah, he's a second baseman. Yeah, he's a second baseman, right?
I was at that game. Yeah, he's a second baseman.
Yeah. I mean, I like Correa. I've always liked him. But again, Xander, I feel like again, you're not losing just a shortstop, right? You're kind of losing the heart and soul of the Red Sox organization, the face of the organization. He's the guy that you always look at when they're right, when they're wrong. He's the accountable player that the cameras look at to kind of say, okay, what's going on? How are you guys feeling? You know, when he's honest.
Do you think the weight of the negotiations were affecting him last year? Like how?
It's hard.
I mean, obviously it was affecting him, but like, was it affecting? Like, he has to think about it, but like, was it affecting his play? I guess is more my question.
I don't know. I mean, he had a pretty darn good season. You know, the power numbers weren't quite there, but I mean, he was hovering around 300, right, for the majority of the season, and most of the season he was right there. I thought he played a really good defensive game as well. So it's hard to say the negotiations really hurt him, you know. But I know he was probably thinking about it. It's hard. Again, he's a human being, so it's probably hard not to think about your future as a major league ball player. Where are you going to be? You know, is it going to be different than where you've been for since you were a teenager? You know, a different organization. So I don't know if it affected him or not. If it did, it didn't affect him much because I think he had a really, really good season.
Hey, Lenny, I just want to ask if Rich Hill's considering a half season. You guys are about the same age.
I'll do the first half and he does the second.
I mean, I was just thinking, like, so confirmed breaking news in the Pesky Report. Lenny DiNardo back available on the market. I mean, I could represent you. I'm not sure, like, you know, if you need representation, small percentage, very small.
So, you know, Brock Holt the other day just finally announced his retirement.
Yep.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet. I never had the tweet. I never had the tweet where, all right, I'm retired. I just stopped playing one day. I just stopped playing, and then that was it. I guess I'm retired. But yeah. So yeah, if anybody wants to sign me to a contract, a 1 day or a full season, I'll sign. So
I'm blue.
I'll do the Rich Hill gig.
If you were approached right now, honestly, by, let's say, Korea, go to Japan, would you consider? Would you give it a go? Right? Would you, if they were like, listen, Lenny, we think you got a little tank to come to Japan? Is that something that would even be? Would you even consider it?
I would consider it. I would consider it. I'm 43 years old. I mean,
same.
Yeah. Here's the thing. People like I go to the local YMCA and work out probably 4 or 5 days a week, and I get it all the time. People are like, "Oh, you look like you can still play. Oh, you're in good shape. You probably can still play." And I could probably play on a 15-man rotation, right? If I had 14 days off in between my starts, I could probably get it done. But that's the difference right there. Being able to kind of bounce back with 4 days rest or 2 or 3 days rest if I'm in the bullpen, that's difficult. That's where it gets, that's where Rich Hill is kind of a freak to be able to go out there and kind of get ready with that lack of time. You know, that's when you're 43, you feel it.
I don't want to tell a major league pitcher what to do, but have you considered pitching using the right arm sometimes? So therefore, you know, you could go through and you give yourself that time between. So, you know, keep
I
it
hate
fresh.
to tell you this, but the only reason I ever made it to the big leagues because I threw it with my left hand. Okay, I wouldn't have been anywhere with my right hand. I'm very fortunate to be able to throw from the left side, so no one would have considered me from this angle.
Are you a good bunter?
No, I was the worst. I hated bunting. I am 1 for 5 though, at the big league level. Don't forget that.
Who was the pitcher you got the hit off of?
Matt Cain.
Damn.
Matt Cain, yeah.
That's
seeing
cool.
as though Brady brought it up, I gotta ask, what were your thoughts on Pat? What's his last name? Vendette,
The
the ambidextrous pitcher.
switch pitcher, yeah.
Oh,
what
tell
are my
me you know about
thoughts?
yeah.
I think it's insane that he can go out there and do that, right? I mean, there's a reason you can name the only guy that does that, right? Is there one or two guys? Because I heard a guy.
I don't know of any other person. And
Two when you start
in
doing
Brooklyn. Did he play in Brooklyn for the Cyclones a couple years
Yes.
ago?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, I knew it, right? So
He played for the
that's
A's
insane
too.
that he can go out there and do that. And what's the rule? What's the rule? Does he have to distinguish, or does the batter
Yes,
have to distinguish?
he has to distinguish in which arm he's going to pitch.
I don't like
Okay.
that.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I had to switch to bowling right-handed because I didn't want to like throw my shoulder out. But that's as close to throwing anything with my right hand that I'm getting right there.
You know who I feel like could come in and pitch left-handed? Shohei Ohtani. Like, if you told me he could do that, I'd be like, yeah, of course.
Why not? Why not? He although I did see, you think he'd be good at everything, but I think I saw a video of him golfing.
Sucks.
Right? I saw a video and I'm like, oh, he's bad at something. He's bad at something. Okay. It was probably Photoshopped. It was probably doctor video. But yeah.
We got to
Yeah,
find
that guy's
something
fun to
that
watch.
Mookie's bad at too.
Nothing.
He's good at
Nothing.
everything.
Right?
He's.
It's not fair.
I read one of his
It's not fair.
poems. I read one of his poems. It wasn't the best, right?
We're
Like,
talking sports here, buddy.
oh, athletics. You know, I just figured Mookie.
Wait, we're not talking about the wild world of competitive poetry? Slam poetry?
Iambic pentameter.
Great.
That's, yeah, I mean, those guys, again, when you're an athlete, you're an athlete. You know, and I see some of these guys, I'll go to these golf tournaments. I'm a terrible golfer, right? And I mean, some of these guys, like Will Middlebrooks is a really good golfer. Salty Lamakia can hit the ball a mile. Obviously, Jim Rice can hit the ball a mile. These guys are just athletes. You know, they can get it done in different sports, whether it's football, basketball, golf, baseball, whatever. Unfortunately, I'm not that guy. I could pitch, and run a 5K every now and then, I guess. But other than that,
All right. I have my last question of the episode. All right. So Eckersley, it was his last year on the broadcast. Unfortunately, we lost Jerry in 2021. We lose Eckersley 2022. Who would you like to see in the booth next year going forward?
As far as the guys that were there last year, Euclid, I thought he did an outstanding job. I feel like he's a guy that kind of takes a little bit of what Jerry and Eck had. And just starting out, I feel like he kind of got hot pretty quick. Jerry would be the first guy to tell you that, listen, his first few seasons, he didn't feel comfortable, didn't sound comfortable. He told me that, and I didn't believe it, but yeah, I mean, other people will kind of confirm. He's like, listen, he wanted to quit. He didn't feel like he was good at this at all. But the more games, the more seasons he got under his belt, he found his voice up there, and I feel like Uke really kind of found it pretty quick. And he's the type of guy that's going to do his homework as well. You know, some guys are able to just get in the booth and kind of just wing it. He's not that type of guy. He's going to prepare. He's going to know what he's talking about. And so I feel like he's a guy, if he's willing to go out there and do it, I feel like he can do as many games as he wants to. You know, I feel like they'd be glad to have him. As far as Millar, the games that he was in the booth, very entertaining. Very entertaining. That's what you kind of got in the clubhouse. You know, what you got in the booth is what you had as a teammate. It was hilarious. I don't know how sustainable that is, though, over 80, 100 games. I mean, I don't know how you can do that, right? It's just too much funny to go around for that. And Maz, I want to give Maz some credit, too. He wasn't a ball player, right? But I feel like he knows the game, and he showed that throughout the season. You know, he calls it like it is, and in his way made the broadcast as entertaining as possible. You know, and again, people kind of give him crap because he's not a player and he's he can be negative, but I felt like his voice in the booth kind of was knowledgeable. He kind of, the things that he said, you're like, oh, you know what, he's right. He's right. And sometimes you kind of have to look past the fact that, okay, he wasn't a ball player, but he's a very, very smart baseball guy, in my opinion.
We'll say that when they announced that Maz was going to be in the booth, I was not thrilled. But my opinion has actually changed because he wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be super negative. You know, he had his negative times, but it wasn't like.
But it was 2022 Red Sox. There was a
Right.
lot of things that didn't go right, unfortunately for everybody, right? And you have to respect that, right? That he was able to say that, and he wasn't kind of, you know, being the quote unquote homer. You know, he wasn't afraid to go out there and say, okay, that wasn't great. That downright sucked, you know? And you do want to be able to say that when things are going bad, you know?
I agree.
Hey, Lenny, last question for me for the evening. And is it fair to say that although Alex Cora looked great with a beard, I mean, he looked just tremendous, right?
Cora Claus.
He isn't that pretty much, from your professional opinion, what threw off the entire season?
The Cora beard?
I mean, 2021 things went really well, right? And then
Not unless guys were tripping over the beard and hurting themselves. That's the only way the beard hurt. I'm a lot of baseball players are superstitious, but I can't go on record saying that Alex Cora's beard was the reason why. Like I said, unless it was long enough for guys to trip on and hurt their hips or something, that was it.
But you agree it looked great, though.
Oh, it did look great. Yeah, I like the beard.
Fox.
Yeah, I like the beard.
Confirmed.
Yeah,
So my
the
last
white
question.
beard.
Sorry. My last question for you. I saw this on Twitter the other day, and just gotta ask. Somebody was asking people, what is your most controversial, benign opinion about baseball? So that's kind of like, like I actually like the Ghost Runners, or double headers should be played every week, or something like that. Like not, like so and so should be in the Hall of Fame. Like what's your like most controversial opinion about the game? I guess that like how it's played.
Well, I'll give you a couple. Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame.
That's
pretty
relevant
benign,
because he's on the committee ballot, isn't he?
I'm not sure, but I felt for years I've been saying Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame. Another opinion, the Ghost Runner on second. At first I was anti, but now I'm completely on board with it. I've gotten home way too many times at 5 a.m. and now, it just doesn't happen anymore. So I called myself a baseball purist, but now I can't do that. I'm all in. I do not like what's happening with the timing situation that they're implementing next year.
Pitch clock.
Yeah, I like a pitch clock, but the fact that you're only, as a pitcher, allowed to throw to first base twice, how is that fair? If you pick off a third time and he's not out, he gets to go to second base. It's kind of just a weird rule that I don't know how that's going to affect the game, but I don't feel like it's going to help the game. I feel like the pitch out might come back into effect too. You don't really see pitch outs as much, but now the pickoff isn't necessarily going to be your best weapon against the running game. So now you might see more pitch outs to kind of counteract the stolen base and the extra or the lack of the 4.5 inches between bases now that you're going to have. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I don't really.
No, that was perfect.
All right.
All right. Well, Lenny, thank you so very much for being so generous with your time, entertaining us and with all of our questions. Confirmed that Alex Cora's beard, from Mr. Lenny DiNardo's perspective, is what completely threw off the season. That's confirmed. I know I feel better making sure that we establish that throughout. He's also having a comeback for only half a season, so that's exciting.
We got to flip a coin though. If I'm taking the first or the second half, I don't know. We got to talk about it.
I'm gonna let you pick. All right, because
Okay.
we're I'll work on that. And
Rich Hill's taking the break. He's going to be available at the break. So
I got to get ready then. I got to go. I got to
Right.
go to the gym right now then. Okay, get ready. I've been lifting cats all day. This is all I'm holding right now. This is about my 2-pound weight right here. Yeah.
Lots of reps, low weight. I like it.
There you go.
Good job. Lenny, thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me, guys. It's been fun.
All right, have a good one.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pesky Report. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.